Long ago, vampires and humans were sworn enemies, locked in a deadly hunt for survival. Their battles shaped the night, a constant struggle between bloodlust and survival instincts. However, over time, they managed to broker a truce, establishing a set of rules that allowed them to coexist in a fragile peace. For years, this balance held, giving both humans and vampires a respite from their ancient rivalry. But everything changed when one reckless vampire crossed the line, violating the truce and reigniting the age-old enmity, thrusting both sides back into conflict. In Night Teeth, we dive into this tense world where old enemies walk a fine line between peace and war. The film opens with a suspenseful encounter. Jay Perez arrives late at night to pick up his girlfriend, Maria, from a laundromat. The quiet tension quickly escalates when they find themselves pursued by a sleek, menacing Maserati. Jay's reaction hints that he recognizes the driver, and it's clear from his tense expression that he's far from pleased. This ominous beginning sets the tone, hinting at the danger lurking just beneath the surface in this world of uneasy alliances and deadly secrets. After a tense moment of stillness, Jay grips his gun tightly, bracing himself for what's about to come. His pursuer, a blonde vampire named Victor, waits impatiently in his Maserati, eyes fixed on Jay. When the traffic light turns green, Jay floors the gas, racing to shake off Victor. He eventually stops, telling Maria to drive the car away as he steps out, determined to face his foe. Inside a dimly lit basement, Jay stumbles upon a gruesome scene. 3 bodies hang from the ceiling, bleeding and eerily silent. Meanwhile, Maria, waiting outside in the car, is jolted by a sudden smash to the window, and Jay, hearing the shatter, rushes out only to find Maria missing. As the eerie events of the night unfold, we're introduced to Benny, the main character, who seems blissfully unaware of the turmoil. In stark contrast to Jay's high-stakes confrontation, Benny is seen dozing peacefully in class, entirely oblivious to the dark undercurrents in his city. His carefree state gives no hint of the danger that lies ahead or the role he'll soon play in the unfolding chaos. This juxtaposition between Benny's innocence and the violence of Jay's world heightens the suspense, setting the stage for the story's dramatic turn. Benny is a down-to-earth, kind-hearted guy whose life revolves around his family, studies, and passion for music. Living with his grandmother, Abuela, Benny is studying economics in college, diligently working toward his degree. Despite his busy academic life, Benny finds time to indulge in his creative side. He's an aspiring beatmaker, and his talent is gaining recognition. His grandmother, a warm and caring figure, shows her love by cooking hearty meals for him, making sure he never goes hungry. Benny's room reflects his personality, filled with skateboards and posters of his favorite anime, Naruto. It's a space that perfectly captures his blend of youthful enthusiasm and passion. One day, as he was working on a new beat, Benny overhears his brother, Jay, on the phone, in what sounds like an intense conversation. Jay, a professional driver for the ultra-wealthy, usually keeps his work life separate, but this call has an urgency Benny can't ignore. Though Jay is typically secretive, it's clear something is weighing on him, and he's facing other pressing matters that day. Benny is left wondering about his brother's mysterious job and what else might be keeping him occupied. Little does he know, this day will lead him into a world of danger and mystery far beyond his everyday life. Eager to help his brother and earn some extra cash, Benny offers to take over Jay's shift as a personal driver. At first, Jay hesitates, doubting Benny's ability to handle the job and all that comes with it. But after a moment's thought, he decides to trust him, handing over the keys with a firm reminder to be careful. For Benny, this is more than just a chance to make money. It's an opportunity to experience a glimpse of his brother's intriguing world. The job seems straightforward enough. He simply has to drive clients around the city in Jay's place, handling a luxurious black Cadillac Escalade that comes with the latest tech so advanced it can be started from the outside with just a push of a button. As Benny prepares for his shift, the excitement builds. He slips into Jay's polished uniform, feeling almost transformed by the slick attire. Tonight, he's not just Benny. To everyone he meets, he must present himself as Jay, adding a layer of thrill and mystery to the experience. Sliding behind the wheel of the elegant Cadillac, Benny can't help but be awestruck by the vehicle's sleek design and sophisticated features. For someone like him, used to the quieter, simpler pleasures of his own life, this taste of luxury feels surreal. But as he heads off for his first ride, the excitement is mixed with a sense of nervous anticipation. Little does he know, the night ahead holds far more than he could have ever expected. Benny's face lights up with childlike excitement, reminiscent of a kid finally getting that dream toy on Christmas morning. The thrill of driving the sleek Cadillac and stepping into his brother's world fills him with joy and nerves. As evening approaches, he sets off to a sprawling mansion where he'll pick up his clients for the night. Despite his eagerness, nerves begin to creep in, and he mentally rehearses how to appear as polished and professional as possible. When he arrives, Benny tries to mask his anticipation, bracing himself for his first encounter. Suddenly, the mansion doors open, and out steps a striking, red-haired young woman who exudes confidence and poise. At first, Benny mistakes her for Zoe Moreau, but she quickly corrects him. Her name is Blair, a close friend of Zoe's. Embarrassed by the mix-up, Benny's attempt to keep cool begins to unravel further. As he tries to recover, Blair points out with a laugh that his zipper is down, adding to his flustered state. Mortified, Benny quickly fixes his mistake, only to realize he forgot a crucial driver etiquette, opening the door for her. Red-faced and fumbling, Benny tries to regain his composure. Blair, however, takes it in stride, giving him an amused smile, which only adds to his mix of embarrassment and thrill. Despite the awkward start, he can't help but feel this night will be full of unforgettable surprises. Benny's inexperience as a personal driver is evident. He's unsure of how to carry himself, his nerves betraying him from a mile away. Each movement is slightly awkward, his excitement tinged with uncertainty. Just then, the second client, Zoe Moreau, steps onto the scene, radiating a unique, almost intimidating presence. Zoe's demeanor is intense, combining a certain aggression with an unmistakable elegance. Benny soon learns his job for the night is to chauffeur the two women to 5 separate locations before dawn, each destination cloaked in mystery. As they settle into the car, Benny tries to find his rhythm, keeping his cool while the girls exchange knowing looks that suggest they're sizing him up. While en route to their first destination, Blair and Zoe decide to break the ice with a question that catches Benny off guard. With a mischievous glint, they ask him what he would do if he knew tonight was his last. It's clear they're expecting an exciting or daring answer, maybe a glimpse of an adventurous spirit hidden behind Benny's reserved demeanor. But, true to himself, Benny surprises them with an unexpectedly simple answer, explaining that he's a laid-back guy without any elaborate fantasies or wild dreams. His honesty brings a pause to the conversation, and while Blair and Zoe seem amused, Benny wonders if his response hints at just how different their worlds are. Little does he know, his quiet night as a driver is about to veer wildly off course. With a playful but slightly unsettling glint in her eye, Zoe raises the stakes of their conversation by asking Benny who he would kill if he had to choose, her, Blair, or his grandmother. Trying to keep his composure and stay professional, Benny initially hesitates, but then, to break the tension, he jokes that he'd choose Zoe. This answer draws a smirk from Zoe and a laugh from Blair, who seems amused by his unexpected reply. The banter eases Benny's nerves, though he finds himself glancing at Blair more often than he'd like to admit. There's something about her that draws him in, and throughout the drive, he tries to steal glances, captivated by her mysterious charm. Their first destination turns out to be an extravagant, secretive party where guests wear masks to hide their identities. The air is thick with exclusivity, and the mansion before them pulses with an aura of secrecy. Before stepping out, Blair and Zoe each produce a small amulet, adorned with a gleaming red stone. Benny watches, intrigued, as they show him the strange tokens, explaining that these amulets are the only way to gain access to the event. The realization dawns on Benny. He's been plunged into a world far different from anything he's known, and the night is only beginning. As he watches the girls disappear behind the grand doors, he can't help but feel a sense of awe and an underlying curiosity about what lies ahead. Meanwhile, Jay was busy formulating a plan to tackle the rising vampire threat, determined to put an end to Victor's actions, which had reignited hostilities between humans and vampires. Jay knew he couldn't let this night end without taking some decisive action. Across town, Benny, unaware of the bigger conflict unfolding, grew restless as he waited for Blair and Zoe to return from the exclusive party. Stepping out of the car for some fresh air, he noticed an amulet similar to the ones the girls carried lying on the ground. Curiosity piqued, he pocketed it, wondering what role it played in their world. Not long after, the girls emerged from the mansion, and Benny drove them to their next stop, an underground parking lot. Like before, he was left waiting while they disappeared into yet another mysterious venue. As he adjusted in the driver's seat, Benny noticed Zoe's phone left behind in the car, buzzing with incoming messages. Glancing at the screen, he saw texts from someone named Victor, the same name Jay had mentioned earlier. The sight of the texts leaves Benny with a strange, unsettling feeling, hinting that the night is far from over and perhaps far more dangerous than he had realized. Victor's messages were direct and unsettling, repeatedly asking for Jay. Benny felt a strange unease at this. After all, he was Jay for the night, which meant that Victor might actually be looking for him. Feeling the need for answers, Benny attempted to call his brother, but the call went unanswered, heightening his sense of alarm. Left with few options, Benny's curiosity got the better of him. He glanced at Zoe's purse lying on the seat beside him, and after a brief hesitation, he unzipped it to investigate. To his shock, he discovered a stack of cash, but the sight of bloodstains seeping through the bills sent a chill down his spine. Fumbling with the money in disbelief, he accidentally smeared blood across his face and the collar of his shirt, feeling the weight of the dangerous world he had unknowingly stepped into. Suddenly, the tense silence of the parking lot was broken as a police officer entered, scanning the area with suspicion. Realizing the risk he was taking just by being there, especially with blood on his shirt and face, Benny's instincts kicked in. Without a second thought, he abandoned the car and bolted toward the entrance where the girls had gone, desperate to find Blair and Zoe and piece together the mystery surrounding them. Adrenaline surged through him as he navigated the dark corridors, hoping to avoid the officer while figuring out just how much danger he was truly in. As Benny rushed through the entrance, he realized he was in a high-end hotel lobby with elegant decor and dim, moody lighting. Out of breath, disheveled, and with blood smeared on his collar, he caught the eye of the concierge. She looked him up and down, her expression shifting from polite curiosity to suspicion as she registered his appearance. Clearly concerned, she started reaching for the phone to call security. But just then, her eyes fell on the amulet Benny was gripping tightly in his hand, its red stone gleaming faintly. Her demeanor changed instantly. The amulet's presence signaled to her that Benny was part of something exclusive, something few had access to. In a flustered but relieved manner, the concierge quickly apologized, mistaking Benny for someone important. Seizing the opportunity, Benny tried his best to look the part, holding his head high as though he truly belonged. She offered a polite smile, urging him to follow her to the elevator. As they walked, she leaned in and whispered a suggestion to drink responsibly, hinting at a decadent scene upstairs. Benny could hardly believe his luck, managing to pass off the amulet's power as his own. As he stepped into the elevator, he felt the thrill of venturing deeper into this mysterious world, and yet a nagging feeling told him that whatever lay ahead would be far from ordinary. As Benny stepped into the lavish hotel room, he was hit with a wave of shock and horror. The atmosphere was thick with a surreal blend of elegance and brutality, as he stood frozen in place at the sight before him. Blair and Zoe were hunched over to men, their fangs sunk deep into their necks, blood dripping down their chins. Zoe, noticing Benny's presence, turned with blood-streaked lips, her eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. Before Benny could process what was happening, she lunged forward, lifting him off the ground with surprising strength. The fear coursing through him felt suffocating as he stammered out the truth: he wasn't Jay, but rather his brother, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and terror. Zoe's expression shifted from intrigue to disdain as she considered Benny, her instincts telling her he was no longer of any use to her since he wasn't the target she wanted. She contemplated draining his blood right then and there, but Blair quickly intervened, her voice steady and persuasive. "Wait," she said, eyeing Benny with a flicker of understanding. "He can help us find Jay." Just as Zoe began to relent, a muffled groan interrupted their tense standoff. One of the men on the floor stirred, beginning to regain consciousness, and the reality of the situation intensified. Benny's heart raced as he realized the precariousness of his position, trapped between two dangerous vampires and an awakening threat in the room. He had to think quickly to navigate this life-and-death scenario. As the reality of the situation began to unfold, Benny realized that this gathering was no ordinary party. It had been meticulously planned, with the two men willingly offering themselves as food for the vampires in exchange for payment. This dark arrangement struck Benny as horrifying and surreal. These men were not victims in the traditional sense, but rather participants in a gruesome spectacle. However, the night took a deadly turn when Zoe, caught up in the frenzy, lost control and killed one of the men without a second thought. With blood still glistening on her lips, she casually ordered Blair to finish off the second victim, showing no remorse for their grim fate. The chilling acceptance of their roles sent a wave of panic through Benny, prompting him to make a desperate escape. Heart racing, Benny bolted out of the hotel room, the weight of the night's horrors bearing down on him as he stumbled into the night. However, his relief was short-lived. Just as he thought he might find safety, he ran straight into the officer he had tried to evade earlier. Out of breath and frantic, Benny hurriedly recounted the chaos he had just witnessed, hoping for some semblance of understanding or support. To his dismay, the officer listened with an unsettling calmness, as if this were an everyday occurrence. Benny's heart sank as he realized that the officer didn't seem surprised at all, raising questions about the extent of the vampire world that lurked beneath the surface of his city. In that moment, Benny understood that he was far more entangled in this dark web than he had ever anticipated, and the stakes were higher than he could have imagined. Benny's heart raced as he realized the officer's true intentions. Instead of coming to his aid, the officer was preparing to arrest him and drag him into a situation he couldn't escape. Just when it seemed that Benny's fate was sealed, Zoe and Blair emerged from the hotel room, their bloodied lips and satisfied expressions a clear indication of their recent meal. To Benny's horror, the officer greeted them with familiarity, exchanging knowing glances that confirmed what he had dreaded all along. They were all part of this sinister underworld. A brief, hushed conversation took place, filled with unspoken agreements, and surprisingly, the officer led Benny away without a single word of arrest. But freedom was fleeting. The moment he tried to reach for his phone to call for help, Zoe was quick to notice his intentions. With a swift motion, she shattered his phone in her hands, leaving him utterly helpless. Meanwhile, across town in his opulent mansion, Victor indulged in a glass of freshly drawn blood, a chilling reminder of the power he wielded. The lavish surroundings were in stark contrast to the grim reality lurking just below the surface. In the dimly lit basement of his home, captive victims lay unconscious in glass boxes, bound and helpless as blood was extracted from them, their faces pale and vulnerable. Victor reveled in his dominance over them, seeing them as mere sources of sustenance rather than human beings with lives and stories of their own. As he sipped his drink, he plotted his next move in the brewing war between vampires and humans, unaware that the very actions he took would set off a chain of events that would draw Benny and his brother Jay deeper into a conflict they never anticipated. The world was shifting, and the balance of power was about to change, with consequences that would echo far beyond the walls of his extravagant mansion. After savoring the taste of blood, Victor climbed into his sleek Maserati, the engine purring to life as he prepared to pay a visit to some influential figures in the vampire community. Meanwhile, in the back seat of the car, Benny sat uneasily between Zoe and Blair, contemplating his next move. Gathering his courage, he unbuckled his seatbelt and made a sudden attempt to escape. But just as he swung the door open, he was met with a shocking sight. Zoe had seemingly teleported in front of him, her presence both intimidating and surreal. With a predatory grin, she blocked his path, reminding him of the impossibility of his escape and heightening his sense of desperation. Meanwhile, Victor sped through the dark streets, heading toward the lair of Grace and Eva, two of the most powerful vampires in the city. As he arrived at their opulent hideout, it was clear that Victor was not just any vampire. He was an operative for the formidable duo. Grace and Eva held significant sway in the vampire hierarchy and collaborated closely with Martin, another key player in the Los Angeles underworld. As the atmosphere thickened with tension, the girls exchanged knowing glances, acutely aware that Victor had crossed a dangerous line in Boyle Heights by killing Maria, Jay's girlfriend. This transgression stirred unease among the powerful, setting off a chain of reactions that could have dire consequences for everyone involved. The delicate balance of power within their world was on the verge of collapse, and Victor's reckless actions would not go unnoticed by those who sought to maintain control. As the tension escalated in the lavish hideout, Grace and Eva found themselves at a crossroads, faced with the daunting task of deciding how to punish Victor for his reckless actions that had shattered years of hard-won peace among their kind. Grace, embodying the authority of their alliance, firmly declared that Victor would be banned from the town for an extended period, hoping to reestablish order and discipline within their ranks. However, the atmosphere shifted dramatically when Victor defiantly declared that he had no intention of leaving. With a smirk, he revealed his audacious plan to seize control of all of Los Angeles, a power grab that sent shivers down the spines of the two powerful vampires. Caught off guard by his brazen ambition, Eva instinctively reached for her phone to contact Martin, seeking his counsel and support in the escalating crisis. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, neither of the girls knew that Martin had already fallen victim to Victor's treachery, his life extinguished in a brutal act that would send shockwaves through the vampire community. The air grew thick with dread as Victor dramatically produced a gruesome trophy from his pocket. Martin's severed ear. The sight was chilling, leaving Grace and Eva breathless, a tangible reminder of Victor's ruthless intentions and the dark depths of his betrayal. In that moment, they understood the gravity of their predicament. Victor wasn't just a rogue vampire, but a formidable adversary determined to dismantle their carefully constructed world, plunging them all into an imminent conflict that threatened to consume them. In the aftermath of Victor's chilling display of power, Grace and Eva realized they were utterly defenseless against his wrath. Before they could formulate a plan or call for help, Victor swiftly executed them, their lives extinguished in an instant. With their deaths, the balance of power shifted dramatically, leaving the vampire community vulnerable and at the mercy of Victor's insatiable thirst for control. The repercussions of this betrayal would ripple throughout the underworld, sowing chaos in what had once been a carefully maintained order. Meanwhile, Benny and the girls found themselves at a market, a brief respite amidst the unfolding chaos. Zoe stepped out to buy something, leaving Benny feeling anxious and on edge as he remained in the car. Sensing his distress, Blair turned to him, trying to soothe his nerves. She explained the delicate balance that allowed vampires and humans to coexist in their town, emphasizing the importance of adhering to certain rules that kept the peace. Blair also revealed a shocking truth. Zoe was Victor's girlfriend, which explained her fierce loyalty to him. Together, Blair and Zoe managed the finances for various businesses and blood clubs, serving as the underbelly of their world. Blair's revelation painted a clearer picture for Benny, illustrating that Victor's thirst for power had been brewing for some time, and this night was just the beginning of a far more significant and dangerous upheaval than he could have ever anticipated. Victor's ambition was ruthless. He intended to eliminate all 5 leaders of the city to establish himself as the undisputed ruler. Blair's voice lowered as she revealed the gravity of the situation to Benny, explaining how Jay, his brother, had taken control of the Boyle Heights territory. Victor's scheme had been cunning. He wanted to manipulate Jay into turning against the other city leaders, leveraging his anger and grief over Maria's death as a weapon. By killing her, Victor aimed to provoke Jay into a reckless confrontation, igniting chaos that would ultimately serve Victor's plans. But with Benny stepping in for Jay, Victor's carefully laid plans had been thrown into disarray, placing Benny in an unexpected and dangerous position as he was now a pawn in a game far beyond his comprehension. As Blair continued to share these revelations, Benny felt a surge of determination mixed with an unexpected spark between them. The tension in the car shifted, their eyes met, and a connection began to blossom amidst the chaos surrounding them. He found himself drawn to Blair's strength and resilience, traits that shone through even in the face of danger. While they discussed strategies to navigate the turmoil that lay ahead, the bond between them deepened, offering a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dire situation. With the stakes so high, Benny knew he had to find a way to warn Jay and thwart Victor's plans while simultaneously exploring the burgeoning feelings he had for Blair. As they journeyed into the unknown, the lines between friendship and something more began to blur, giving Benny a newfound sense of purpose in the fight against Victor's tyranny. Meanwhile, Jay had rallied his gang, a fierce collective determined to hunt down the vampires that had disrupted their lives. The atmosphere was tense as they arrived at the opulent mansion of an influential LA boss named Gio, whose connections and resources were crucial in their quest for revenge. Jay confronted Gio, hoping to gather intel on Blair and Zoe. As they spoke, Gio revealed a chilling account of the girls' recent escapade, detailing how they had crashed his party and drained nearly all of his blood. The urgency in his voice was palpable. He desperately needed a drink to recover from the encounter. Just as Gio was about to share more information about their whereabouts, a hail of gunshots erupted, silencing him forever and leaving Jay and his crew in shock. The sudden violence only heightened the stakes, marking the night as a turning point in the escalating conflict. Unbeknownst to Jay, Blair, Zoe, and Benny were making their way to the Three Kings, a popular club known for its vibrant nightlife and hidden dangers. The girls knew that their recent actions had put them in the crosshairs of vengeance, and they were determined to stick together for safety. As they approached the club, Zoe insisted that Benny join them inside, fearing he might run away and leave them vulnerable to the chaos that seemed to be closing in. Benny, still grappling with the revelations about his brother and the escalating vampire conflict, felt the weight of the moment settle upon him. He understood that staying close to the girls was his best chance of survival, and there was an undeniable thrill in being drawn deeper into their world. With the pulsating energy of the club beckoning them, Benny stepped into a realm where danger and allure intertwined, aware that every choice he made could tip the balance between life and death in this unfolding war. Before Benny could step into the pulsating atmosphere of the Three Kings, he was suddenly intercepted by a group of his college friends who had been lingering outside. They recognized him instantly, their faces lighting up with a mix of surprise and amusement. Seizing the opportunity, they attempted to use Benny's connection as a driver to gain entry into the club, boasting about how they could roll in with someone important. Their teasing quickly turned condescending as they mocked him for his new job, ribbing him about being just a chauffeur for rich folks. The playful banter took a turn, and Benny felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment, but before he could respond, Blair stepped in. Unable to tolerate their taunts any longer, she grabbed Benny and pulled him close, kissing him fiercely in a bold display of defiance. The unexpected kiss not only silenced his friends, but ignited a spark of attraction between Benny and Blair that felt electric amidst the chaos. Inside the club, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation, but unbeknownst to the girls, Jay and his crew had already arrived. Scanning the crowd for any sign of Blair and Zoe, Jay's heart raced with the need for answers, determined to confront those who had disrupted his life so violently. Meanwhile, as Blair and Zoe navigated through the thrumming crowd, they unexpectedly encountered Caleb, a well-known vampire hunter with a reputation that preceded him. He wasn't alone. Within moments, the girls found themselves cornered by a group of intimidating men who moved in quickly, their intentions unclear. The situation escalated, and the once vibrant club atmosphere grew tense as Blair and Zoe exchanged wary glances, realizing they were now entangled in a web of danger that could threaten not only their lives, but Benny's as well. As Caleb stepped forward with a predatory glint in his eye, it became apparent that the night was about to take a perilous turn, testing their resolve and alliances in ways they never expected. Just as Caleb and his group prepared to execute their grim intentions, Benny's instincts kicked in. In a moment of sheer desperation, he hurled a bottle of champagne over Caleb's head, the glass shattering in a sparkling explosion that drew everyone's attention. The distraction worked perfectly, allowing Blair and Zoe to seize the opportunity and break free from their captors. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the trio rushed toward the exit, their hearts pounding in sync with the pulsating bass of the club. They could almost taste freedom when, unexpectedly, Jay caught sight of Benny across the crowded room. Recognition flickered in his eyes, and just as he began to push through the throng of Badas to reach his brother, he was intercepted by one of the club's staff, who was intent on stopping him. Enraged by the obstacle, Jay's temper flared, and in a split-second decision, he drew a knife from his belt and plunged it into the staff member's heart without hesitation. The man fell to the ground, his body igniting in a flash of flames, revealing the dark truth of their existence. The burning body cast an eerie glow on the chaos unfolding around them, but Jay's moment of triumph was short-lived. As Benny, Blair, and Zoe scrambled to get into Benny's car, Jay's gang emerged from the shadows, armed with crossbows and determination etched on their faces. Bolts whizzed through the air, narrowly missing the trio as they ducked for cover. The sudden onslaught intensified the chaos, turning a night that had begun with hope into a desperate fight for survival. With danger closing in on all sides, alliances were put to the test, and the night's true battle had only just begun. Without wasting a moment, Benny slammed the car door shut and floored the accelerator, weaving through the chaotic streets as adrenaline coursed through his veins. Zoe, seemingly unfazed by the danger they had just escaped, stuck her head out of the window and howled with wild abandon, embodying a reckless spirit that contrasted sharply with the tension that had just unfolded. Benny couldn't help but chuckle at her carefree attitude, feeling a rush of camaraderie and exhilaration. Determined to keep them safe, he made the decision to let Blair and Zoe hide at his house, knowing it was a risk but feeling a protective instinct take over. As they arrived home, Benny's heart raced not just from the thrill of the chase, but also from the anxiety of introducing the fierce and unpredictable girls to his sweet grandmother, Abuela, who was now standing at the door with a look of sheer terror etched on her face. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with confusion and fear. Abuela immediately bombarded Benny with questions, demanding explanations for the commotion and the two unexpected guests. Benny was acutely aware that he had never brought a girl home before, let alone two, and he felt the pressure mount as he struggled to find the right words. Meanwhile, in stark contrast, Jay and his friends had their own predicament. After the chaos at the club, they were confronted by an officer who worked directly for Victor. The officer, with a calm demeanor that belied the tension in the air, informed Jay that Victor wished to speak with him at Rosso Purao, an upscale restaurant known for its clandestine dealings. Jay's heart sank at the thought of facing Victor, knowing that the vampire lord's intentions were rarely benign. With the weight of their respective dangers hanging heavily over them, the brothers' paths were set on a collision course that neither could foresee, intertwining their fates in a night that promised only more turmoil ahead. At Benny's house, the atmosphere was thick with tension and uncertainty. While Benny tried to process the whirlwind of events that had unfolded, Zoe was on the phone with Victor, her tone serious as she listened intently to his instructions. Victor's voice crackled through the line, informing her that only one boss remained to be eliminated, a revelation that sent shivers down Benny's spine. Meanwhile, as the night wore on, Benny and Blair found themselves gravitating toward one another, their connection deepening amid the chaos. Blair's stunning charm captivated Benny, and in turn, his genuine simplicity struck a chord with her, evoking a bittersweet sense of nostalgia. Unbeknownst to Benny, Blair carried the weight of her past. She had once been human, leading a normal life until Zoe transformed her into a vampire. Occasionally, memories of her humanity would resurface, stirring feelings of longing for a simpler existence. As the clock ticked closer to their next destination, the mood shifted, and Blair expressed her concerns for Benny's safety. She didn't want him to accompany them, fearing the dangers that lay ahead and the potential for Victor's wrath to spill over onto him. However, Benny felt an unyielding resolve. He couldn't abandon them, especially after everything they had shared. He understood the risks, but was determined to stand by their side, fueled by an emerging sense of bravery and the undeniable bond that had formed between him and Blair. Her reluctance only made him more steadfast in his decision, as he knew he couldn't just sit back while they faced such peril. As they prepared to leave, the stakes were higher than ever, and the choices they made would reverberate through their lives in ways they could not yet imagine. Meanwhile, Jay arrived at the dimly lit Rosso Puro restaurant, tension radiating off him like a palpable energy. He was on high alert, ready to confront Victor and demand answers about the chaos that had ensued. As he entered, the ambience was heavy with the scent of fine wine and dark secrets, and he found Victor waiting for him at a secluded table, a predatory smile dancing on his lips. Jay could feel the weight of Victor's gaze, a reminder that this encounter was not just a meeting, but a duel of wills. Victor, ever the master manipulator, engaged Jay in a conversation designed to waste time, to toy with his emotions, and lead him down a rabbit hole of deception. But Jay was resolute. He had come to settle the score and reclaim his life. Without warning, Jay's patience snapped. In a swift motion, he drew his weapon and fired a shot that pierced Victor's head, a triumphant rush flooding through him as he prepared to stab the vampire in the heart with his knife. However, Victor's supernatural resilience came into play as he effortlessly stopped Jay's hand, his head beginning to regenerate before Jay's horrified eyes. With an unsettling calm, Victor revealed the grisly truth. He had killed Maria, Jay's beloved girlfriend, and had the audacity to tell him that the meat she had consumed during their last meal together was, in fact, hers. The revelation struck Jay like a thunderbolt, mixing disbelief with a seething rage that ignited his every nerve. In that moment, the depth of Victor's cruelty became clear, and Jay realized that he was not only battling for his own life, but also for the memory of the one he had lost. The night had transformed into a fight not just against Victor, but against the darkness that had invaded their lives. Benny and the girls pulled up to Rocco's bar, a rundown establishment known for its rowdy clientele and eccentric owner. As they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Rocco, a wild-eyed character with a penchant for chaos, looked utterly perplexed by their unexpected arrival. He was used to the unpredictable nature of his patrons, but three newcomers, especially to girls with an unmistakable air of danger, threw him off balance. Zoe wasted no time and approached Rocco for a private conversation, leaving Benny and Blair outside to give them some space. The tension inside the bar was palpable as Zoe ordered a drink, her demeanor cool and calculated. But when she pulled out a knife, Rocco's expression shifted from confusion to terror, realizing that this meeting wasn't about a friendly chat, it was a deadly encounter. Meanwhile, outside, Benny and Blair found themselves in a more intimate moment, away from the chaos brewing within the bar. They began sharing stories about their pasts, revealing their vulnerabilities and desires under the soft glow of the streetlights. As their laughter faded, a more profound connection formed between them, igniting a spark that led them to kiss passionately, lost in a world that felt entirely separate from the dangers surrounding them. However, inside the bar, Rocco's heart raced as he grasped the true purpose of Zoe's visit. He realized that her charming facade was merely a cover for the deadly intent lurking beneath. Panic set in as he understood that the playful banter had morphed into a lethal game, and he needed to think fast to survive the encounter with the knife-wielding woman who had come to end his life. As Zoe lunged at Rocco with the knife, he instinctively reacted, managing to grab her wrist and halt her attack just in time. The unexpected strength of the encounter sent shockwaves through the bar, alerting Rocco's friends to the brewing conflict. Without missing a beat, Zoe and Blair leaped into action, engaging in a fierce battle against Rocco's companions, who had quickly rallied to defend their volatile leader. Fists flew and bodies collided in a chaotic dance of survival, the air thick with tension and adrenaline. Outside, Benny could hear the commotion escalating and decided it was time to intervene. He climbed into the car, heart racing, and revved the engine, his instincts kicking in as he spotted one of the vampire hunters approaching. With a swift maneuver, he slammed the car into gear, hitting the assailant and sending him crashing to the ground, momentarily providing the girls with the distraction they needed. The chaotic night finally seemed to be winding down, but the victory came with a price. Blair and Zoe reached their targets, but as the adrenaline faded, they realized Zoe had sustained injuries and was in dire need of blood to heal. Benny quickly drove them to the last location on their list, only to discover that it was none other than Victor's lair. A realization that sent a chill down his spine. Blair urged him to flee, warning him of the imminent danger lurking within those walls, but Benny's determination was unwavering. He couldn't abandon his brother Jay, who he knew was inside, possibly in grave peril. The weight of the choice pressed heavily on him, but his loyalty to family outweighed the fear that gripped him. With a deep breath, Benny resolved to face whatever awaited them, fully aware that this decision could change everything for all of them. As Benny cautiously ventured deeper into Victor's lair, his heart sank at the horrifying sight before him. Several human prisoners, chained and drained of their vitality, were being held like blood bags to satisfy the vampire's insatiable thirst. Among them was his brother, Jay, pale and weak, but still alive. Benny's instincts kicked in, and he rushed toward Jay, determined to free him from his captivity. However, just as he reached out to unlock the chains binding his brother, Victor emerged from the shadows, a menacing grin spreading across his face. In an instant, Benny was captured, and he felt the cold steel of Victor's grip tightening around him. With Zoe by his side, Victor taunted Benny, threatening to kill him if he dared to interfere. But in that moment of peril, Zoe's facade began to crack. As she watched Benny's desperation for his brother, she was struck by an unexpected realization: she had developed feelings for him, complicating her loyalties in a way she had never anticipated. Fueled by rage and confusion, Victor handed Zoe a knife, expecting her to use it against Benny. Instead, in a fit of frustration, she lashed out and punched Blair in the stomach, a move that shocked everyone involved. The atmosphere became charged with tension as Benny, in a moment of desperation, activated his brother's car from a distance. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the room as a window broke, allowing sunlight to flood in and engulf Zoe, who had always feared the light. Her screams filled the air as the sunlight consumed her, ultimately ending her life. But Victor was quick to retaliate, turning his attention to Benny with a feral intensity, using Jay as bait to gain the upper hand. In a split second, Victor bit Benny, injecting him with his venom. Just when all hope seemed lost, Jay, fueled by the sunlight's power and the rage of his brother's plight, confronted Victor. With a surge of adrenaline, Jay struck down Victor in the blinding light, avenging not just Benny, but all those who had suffered under Victor's reign of terror. The brothers, once again united, stood side by side amidst the chaos, but the battle had left its marks, changing their lives forever. After the climactic battle, Benny felt an unsettling change coursing through his veins. The bite from Victor had transformed him, and he soon realized he was becoming a vampire himself. This newfound existence was a heavy burden, but it also offered him unparalleled strength and agility. In a poignant moment of brotherly connection, Jay prepared to embark on a new journey as a professional vampire hunter. He expressed his hopes for Benny to join him in the fight against the dark forces threatening their city. As they stood together, the weight of their shared experiences hung in the air. Jay reminded Benny that the city would soon descend into chaos, and he expected his brother to fight by his side when the time came. With a mixture of pride and sorrow, Benny understood that their paths were diverging, but the bond between them remained unbreakable. Later that night, as the moon illuminated the sky, Benny sought solace in the company of Blair. They met for an intimate evening, and he was eager to embrace his new identity and explore the darker aspects of his transformation. Their connection had grown deeper amidst the chaos of their lives, and tonight they would share a night of blood drinking, a ritual that would further entwine their fates. As they ventured into the night together, Benny felt a sense of liberation mingling with uncertainty, knowing that he was stepping into a world where he would have to confront his newfound nature. With the promise of action ahead and the thrill of adventure lingering in the air, Benny's story was far from over. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out another story from our channel. Don't forget to leave us a comment, like, and subscribe. See ya!